Hi everyone, it's LadyJenevia. I've seen John Wick on opening weekend because I want to support my one true love in life and Asian icon, Keanu Reeves, but also the John Wick franchise is such a brilliant work of art that needs to be supported far more that it was only appropriate that I make a video about it. Now don't get me wrong, it makes a decent profit at the box office, but part of that comes from the fact that they've kept the budget of these films relatively small. Yet somehow, this has managed to be one of the most visually stunning franchises of this century. That's right, I said what I said. I'm going to review John Wick 3 without spoiling anything significant about the plot, but I will be expanding the review to cover the franchise as a whole, so as to explain how brilliant a work of art it is. Ready, set, go. John Wick is a film trilogy that stars Keanu Reeves in the titular role and is directed by Chad Stahelski, who worked alongside Keanu in the Matrix trilogy as a stunt double and later as a stunt coordinator. It's very clear how important it's been to have someone so experienced with this type of work in charge of the films.
It's obvious, not just with the gun work, but with the actual martial arts moves, that Keanu Reeves trained his butt off. And having a director like Chad, who is a martial artist, a real, talented, disciplined martial artist himself, of course, is a huge advantage because he knows the moves himself. He knows best how to capture it on camera. And when you have that with an incredible team like 8711 Action Design and hardworking actors, you get John Wick. Well, I was geeking out because when Chad was working with Keanu on some of the moves, he was explaining this one throw to Keanu, and Keanu was not sure what he meant. So Chad goes over and does it with the stuntman. And I'm like, what? Right? I'd never seen a director go over and do the move just flawlessly. And it was, I don't know how to do the move. It was this jump on the waist, twist, and then you twirl the guy to the ground. And so this is our director doing the move, and it was great. And you know, I'm like, whoa, in my head, I'm just like, oh, that's really good. and then he's talking to Keanu, and he wants Keanu to try it. And apparently Keanu had never done it before. Then Keanu gets up, and just the fact that he's going over just to try it in front of everybody, right? And he goes over and he jumps up and he locks his legs around the hips, and then he does a twist, and the guy goes flying. I'm like, are you kidding me? First the director does it flawlessly, and then our lead actor. It was great.
The action is some of the finest you will see in Western content. There's a lot of variety in the types of action used throughout the trilogy, whether it's gunfights, knife fights, hand-to-hand combat, and Chapter 3 goes even further with this through some creative new fight choreography using animals. Don't worry, the animals are just fine once the fights are all finished.
What we tried to do in this one was diversity of action, so a lot of a little. And again, we try to characterize the action. So when we go to something we call the Riyadh or Halle sequence, Sofia sequence with John Wick and her canine accomplices, I think that's something we're very, very proud of because of the work that went on behind it.
But there's some badass motorcycle scenes with Keanu, horse scenes with Keanu. I mean, knives.
There's
so many badass scenes.
All of the fights in Chapter 3 are exquisite, but my personal favorite is probably one that's in the first third of the film. It's very Hong Kong in the style, and the pacing is really fast, but you get to see every move that's made by both John and all of the men he's fighting. The lighting design across this trilogy has been superb. There's a very deliberate choice in the colors they use in each scene. Despite the dark, sometimes nihilistic tone of the film story, this use of color ups the artistic value of the franchise and also aids in the world building, so people can better understand that this is its own universe regardless of the many identifiable locations used from filming in New York City. The world building within the story has effectively expanded across the films as the audience has gradually gotten to know a little bit more about the mysterious organization known as the High Table. To give a bit of backstory that will spoil events from the first two films, John Wick is introduced in the first film as a recent widower. Before she passes away, his wife Helen arranges for him to receive a dog in order to help him with his grief. An unfortunate encounter with Alfie Allen, who portrays a Russian gangster named Yosef Tarasov, ends with Yosef and his followers stalking John back to his home where they attack him, kill his dog, and steal his car. Long story short, John hunts everyone down to get revenge, and the film's climax is a fight between him and Vigo Tarasov, who is Yosef's father, and the leader of this group of Russian mobsters. Mikhail Nyqvist is the actor who portrays Vigo, and he receives a tribute in the credits of Chapter 3. The first film is very singularly focused on John and the theme of vengeance being central to his story.
For me to put the suit on is a great pleasure. I love the character. I love his will. I love his grief. I think it's for me, a kind of rich, deep, soulful character, for the love of his wife and that partnership. And I love his will, just trying to survive. I love his facility. I love that he's capable. And I like his sense of humor. And I think he's a good man, in that world.
Keanu is the perfect John Wick because he is John Wick. I feel like, having met Keanu as a person, he is so generous and vulnerable, but also strong. I mean, he really is a multidimensional human being, and he brings that to John Wick. John Wick is also, one of the things I love about John Wick is how vulnerable he is, how in touch with his emotions that he is. It is because he loved his wife and he loved this dog that he seeks revenge, and I think there's something really, really powerful about that. And also Keanu is, he's doing 99.9% of his own stunts, which is an incredibly inspiring thing to be around. Just getting to watch him work was extraordinary.
There's not a lot of backstory revealed about his origins, but there are glimpses of insight into the world that John was operating in before he left it to be with Helen. There are rules and protocol that they must follow even when John has retired from being a hired killer. The story in the second film picks up 4 days after the end of the first, as John takes out the men serving Vigo's brother in order to finally retrieve his car. The central conflict of the film is John being pulled back into work by Santino D'Antonio, an Italian mobster who helped John accomplish the impossible task that allowed him to leave this work to be with Helen in the first place. It introduces another piece of world-building material known as a marker, which consists of a blood oath that makes the person receiving the favor owe another enormous favor in return. Santino wants John to take out his sister Gianna so he can take over her position at the high table, which brings an element of political tension into the story. The hotels that John operates out of while working are referred to as continental ground, and one of the major rules of the high table is that people cannot conduct business on continental ground, meaning that these people are not allowed to try to kill each other while there. John breaks this rule at the end of the second film, which means that he is excommunicado, which is a form of banishment that severs him from having access to any of the people or resources that are a part of this underground world. The third film picks up right after this, on the same evening that John's about to have his excommunicado kick in. Bear in mind that this organization has a whole bureaucratic system that still manages to be aesthetic as hell. John has to fight his way out of numerous assassins coming after him, and it's really incredible to see just how widespread the scope of this network reaches. What John Wick 3 does is something that most franchises have not figured out. It has gotten better the more it's gone on. The action is more impressive than ever. They've completely upped the scale of the fight choreography because they have the right people involved with choreographing, performing, shooting, and editing all of these sequences. They really treat action like an art form. The problem with the action in a lot of other Hollywood projects is they'll shoot footage from a fight sequence, haphazardly edit it together, and top it off with some cheesy sound effects. The John Wick films approach action the same way Into the Badlands does. Every shot is purposeful to ensure the final product is visually exquisite. There are many new characters introduced in this chapter. Halle Berry portrays Sofia, an assassin that has been friends with John when he was active in this world.
Because I've always been a fan of the John Wick world, both 1 and 2, and when I heard that Chad was looking for a female to play some kind of badass character, I didn't even know what, I was like, I'm the girl.
Angelica Huston portrays an important figure from John's past, which offers a level of insight into his origins that has never been shown before.
John Wick was very appealing to me because I love dogs, and so I immediately identified with John Wick and his passion for this puppy. And it seemed to me very much rooted in human emotion, and I was immediately sympathetic with the hero, and I liked the way it looked a lot. And then the action kind of lifts you up and takes you on a ride.
Asia Kate Dillon portrays an abjudicator of the high table, and it's unclear whether or not this is a position that others hold in the organization, but it does reveal more about the infrastructure of the high table. Also, in case anyone has not heard of this actor before, I will mention that they identify as non-binary, so if you would like to discuss their work here or anywhere else, their preferred pronouns are they and them.
You know, this character I play, the adjudicator, is a new character in the third installment, so I was getting to join a world that had already been created, but my character helps the audience discover a little bit more about the world, which I think was a really exciting opportunity for me as an actor.
Finally, Mark Dacascos portrays an assassin named Zero that the adjudicator recruits to go after John.
Zero, at least in his mind, is, though he loves John, he feels like he's on par with John because he loves everything Mr. Wick is about. His style, his grace, his class, his efficiency, how brutal and violent he is, but still a gentleman. He's the biggest fanboy of John Wick there is, probably learned from him through osmosis and hearing stories, and feels like if anyone is able to take out John, it is he himself, Zero. And there's a certain honor to that. I mean, there's an honor in going after John. Nobody else in his mind is worthy of that. Nobody else loves John Wick more than Zero. So it should be Zero who takes John Wick out.
Offering anything else in the way of description or compliments about these characters and performances would spoil far too much. In a very non-specific way, I can state that all of what was presented from them was excellent. I cannot state if I want to see any of them again, because in the John Wick world, a lot of people don't make it out at the end of a film. But in a very general sense, I can state that the film does have more story to tell. It will undoubtedly be very exciting to watch. The film still manages to have a satisfying ending, and overall it is jam-packed full of content. There's no shortage of action, but there's still really nice moments of character insight as well. Everyone should go see it, as long as you're old enough, of course. There are so few original franchises nowadays, let alone one this artistically excellent. I have no major criticisms of this film or any of the John Wick films. In particular, it's nice to see an R-rated franchise continue to have an increase in success as it goes on, as well as an increase in the quality of the product. It's truly exceptional, but that's all I have for this video. Sorry that it's coming up a bit late and that I'm not on camera. I was having some technical issues with my setup, but I'm hoping to get everything back on track for the next video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and follow on Twitter and Instagram. And that's it for now. Bye.
It's been a real honor, and I'm grateful for the audience that has given me and Chad Stahelski and the opportunity, and everyone involved, the opportunity to continue to explore the world of John Wick. It's a great pleasure. I can just tell you it's really fun to work on John Wick.